The opinions expressed in the following program are not necessarily those of Eastlink Community TV, its sponsors, or partners.
Gwe, Jalasi, and Deloisi Julie. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Julie Pellissier Lush. I am the current Poet Laureate of Prince Edward Island, and I would love to welcome you to the Voices of Epekwitk on Eastlink Community TV. Eastlink Community TV is devoted to celebrating the rich history of the First Nations people on Epekwitk. In the coming weeks and months on this program, we will be celebrating our culture and speaking to people making a difference in our communities. Now, I will let my co-host introduce himself.
Gwe, Upjalasi, Nindelawisi, Yipuomokunu. Hello, everybody. Welcome. My traditional name is Eagle Dancer. My non-traditional name is Richard Lush. I'm welcoming you all to this beautiful segment that we're very excited to have. And I'd like to take my mom to introduce our amazing guest.
Today we have with us Captain James Bernard, who resides in Lennox Island, First Nation here on Prince Edward Island. He has lived there most of his life with a few travels here and there that I know of, and his mother is Dorothy Sark and David Bernard. And we are so excited and thrilled to have a master basket maker here today to talk about his craft and to talk about what inspires him as he makes his baskets. We're both so thrilled to have him here with us today. So we are talking with Jim Bernard. Now, the first question I was thinking about when I was so excited that he agreed to come on with us is what, growing up, were you involved in basket making when you were growing up on Lennox Island?
Yeah, I was, but not in the actual basket making, although I saw it numerous times in my life because that's all they did in the house in the wintertime was make baskets. I was involved in pounding of the ash, splitting up the wood, and that was about my involvement. Sometimes I was able to make some bottoms of the baskets, but then the weaving was what my mother did. Yeah, so that was my involvement.
Oh, that's amazing. So, speaking on the involvement at a young age, when did you decide it was time to start making baskets yourself?
This was later in my life. I did a little bit of traveling for years in Massachusetts and Halifax, and Moncton, and Charlottetown. And I had to be 40, I guess, before I decided maybe I will make some baskets again. And it took me a little while to get into it, but I'll have to tell you how I got started on it, right? My wife, well, she wasn't my wife at the time, but she was a girlfriend, I guess. Anyways, we were up around West Point and went to the West Point Lighthouse, and I saw some baskets there. And I told her at the time, I says, wow, I could make baskets a lot better than what I see here. And she says, no, you can't. I said, oh, yeah, I could. I said, but I don't have a shaving horse. Well, can't you make one? I says, yeah, I suppose I could. She says, well, I'm going to tell you something. She says, these baskets here were made by my uncle. And if you think you can make better, you're going to have to prove it. So I decided, well, I may as well put the horse together. So I did. I made a shaving horse and acquired some tools that I might need, some molds and different stuff like that. And I started to make them. And the first ones that came out basically like I saw the ones up there, really rough. But I went on to create quite a bit of them, and I needed some black ash, so I got in touch with another person, Emmett Peters, uh, and we took a trip up to northern Quebec, and there we met another person. I just called him Old John, and we went into his shack up behind the house there, and where he was making baskets. And he was making rib baskets at the time. So we sat there the rest of the afternoon with him and watched him making these rib baskets. So when we were leaving there, Emmett says, "Do you think you can make a rib basket now?" I said, "I'm sure it's gonna try, you know." So I got back to the island there, and we had a bunch of black ash with us then. We went to Nova Scotia and dropped some off for him, and then I came back with the rest. And then I started making baskets, and it went on for a few years, and then I kind of got into a fishing, you know, and then I started fishing for years, and then I wasn't doing very good at it, so I stopped that and I became a fleet manager. See, I couldn't handle one boat, so what they did was they gave me 9 more to handle, teach me a lesson, I guess. Anyways, I managed the 9 boats for approximately 16 years, I think, and then retired. Yeah, they put me out to pasture. Anyways, I built a building out back my place there, and I started really getting into it. And I started getting some wood from New Brunswick this time, and and things started to fall in place. And I had an elder come down from Big Cove, Elsie Buckduck, and he's really good. And I learned quite a bit of stuff from him, and I'm still learning yet. But I've mastered the art of basket weaving. Today, I'm working on a chief's headdress and something to carry it in, which is made out of birch bark. Also, I'm making another carrying case made out of black ash, which is something that, well, the black ash one is something that I could handle easily enough, but the one that was made out of birch bark is really tricky, and I've been struggling with that for days, just trying to put it together. Uh, it looks like a simple thing, but when you go to do it, it's not all that simple, really, because it's the way the wood is and how it's shaped. You take it off a tree because it's basically the shape that you're going to get. It's nothing that you could really shape yourself, because it doesn't come in one sheet. It has to be patched up, sort of. So that in itself was a trick, and I think I got most of it made now. Another day or two, I should have that done. As far as the headdress goes, it's just a matter of now that I got the right size, because she had one before that was made, and it was made around like this, right? But everybody knows that your head is not round. It goes right back like this, right? So when she put the round one on her head, it was kind of wobbling back and forth like this. I took something up there, and I took a pattern of what her head shaped like, so that it would sit right on, made only for her. Like, you know, if it was somebody else, will never get it on their head. She got a lot of brains, but a small head.
I love that so much. Now, we're going to have to take just a slight little break and we will be right back. I have so many questions. I love the idea of this headdress, and I'm so glad I got to see this headdress and be able to take some pictures of it so we can show everybody how beautiful it is. But we're going to take a very, very short break here now, but be sure to keep watching Voices of Epekwitk on Community Eastlink TV. Welcome back to Voices of Epekwitk on Eastlink Community TV. I am Julie Pellissier Lush and my wonderful co-host Richard Lush, and we're here talking with Captain James Bernard of Lennox Island on being a master basket maker. We just finished segment 1, and I had a question that I know that maybe some other people in the audience might have, to see if he could describe for us what a shaving horse is, because I think a lot of people might be curious.
Yes. Okay. A shaving horse is actually sort of like a clamp. So you sit on it and it goes out straight like this, and it's got something sticking up in the middle here where you push your feet. If you push your feet, then this clamp comes down and holds the wood in place for you while you can shave the stick that you have on there. And it's an amazing little machinery that, I could never do it without it. Although there is people out in the woods that would do without it, and I've seen them hooking up a clamp between two trees, which I don't think would be very convenient. I like to sit down when I'm working, and the shaving horse with me has a nice little seat on it, and the place to put your feet. Uh, and when you're pulling on one side of it, you just push the opposite side of the clamp, and will tighten up on this side. If you push this side of the clamp, it'll tighten up on this side. So it's very unique, very unique. And another thing that we use too is a stripper, and that is two boards put together like this, real tight. There's a hole on this side where you put your strip up in between these two boards like this, and then you can just pull the strip apart like this. Yeah, all the little tricks of the trade are in there, and it's amazing. Anyways, like I say, and there's a lot of different stuff that we have. We have what we call a crooked knife, which is used to fine out your strips after they're pounded. We also have the draw knife, which is used with the shaving horse, and it's called a draw knife because you're always drawing it towards you, right? Drawing it, and this takes down the wood to what you would be using. Mostly, it's 3/4 of an inch wood that you want. Sometimes you'll get them that thick, and then you want them come down to here. So you have to use this draw knife to shave it down on all four sides, right? Then it will go through a pounding thing. Like I said before, when I was a kid, we used to pound it, and and we'll pound the wood until it starts to split. Because every year there's another strip coming out, right? And then in the wintertime, I'm assuming there's a small layer of powder, hard powder. So when you hit that, you'll break the powder up and release the strips. So while you're doing it, the strips will be flapping like this, right? And opening up. So after that process is when you use the crooked knife, and then you take and you scrape up all the fine stuff that's still on there, like the powdery formula that I was talking about. And then you can get the strip looking like a piece of paper. It's amazing the way these strips come apart, and even if you get a thick strip, you could use the stripper to bring that one strip and make four out of it. Mostly three, but sometimes you'll get a fourth one. The two that are inside will be really, really smooth, just like I said, a piece of paper without having to do anything with it. These are the strips that we use to make these small baskets because you need to have something that's very fine to make these small baskets. Then we have another thing that's called a cat's claw, and it's a piece of wood with blades sticking up here, and you could make your the width of your wood this big, that big, or this big, or whatever you want, right? So I've made several of those so that I could cut my wood out small as I want the strips and as large as I want for the bigger baskets. All of these things that I'm using have been used for many, many, many years, by basket makers. Right from right here on the reserve, there was a lot of people that made baskets back in the 50s and 60s. I think everybody made baskets, 40s, 50s, and 60s. A time when, like I said before, money was just a rumor. You just heard about it because you never ever seen it. So with the basket making back then, the people on the island, they used to make something like 100 baskets a week. They'd take them to across and sell them for 25 cents a piece. So out of 100 baskets, you will get $25. Now people would say, well, Jesus, that's not very much. But back then, a dollar meant a dollar, and you could get quite a bit of stuff for the dollar if you figure that pop was 5 cents. You know, you'll know what the stuff was because it's so inflated now that it's ridiculous. Like you can go in the store today with $100 and come up with a little bag full. That's how expensive stuff is today. Back before, if you had $100, wow, you're rich. That was a lot of money.
That is so true, isn't it? Oh my goodness, the way money was back then and the way money is now. But we are going to take a quick short break here but make sure that you keep watching Voices of Epekwitk on Eastlink Community TV and hear more from Captain James Bernard about basket making. Welcome back to Voices of Epekwitk on Eastlink Community TV. I'm Julie Pellissier Lush and my wonderful co-host Richard Lush, and we're here interviewing Captain James Bernard of Lennox Island. And I think Richard has a question for you.
Now, well, Alan, thank you so much for talking about all the tools and all the beautiful methods. You're passing down knowledge right now to anybody that's listening. Tentative, I know I am listening because, you just inspired me to want to be a basket maker when you said you started when you're 40 years old. So it's never too late to begin, especially with the next generation of youth. So I think my question is, what do you think the future of basket making will be for Lennox Island or all of, the Epekwitk Mi'kmaq, all of the PEI Mi'kmaq here? What is the future of basket making? What does that look like?
I think it's going to be pretty strong. I've been going around PEI doing demonstrations all over the place, and people are actually really interested in the basket weaving. So on the island right now, on Lennox Island, there are people that are getting a lot of interest in baskets, and I'll be out this summer doing the same demonstrations all over PEI again. And the last time I was out, there were several people asking me to show them how to actually weave. Well, I was doing it at the time, but they needed some private lessons, I would say. So actually, there was people come over to my shop and had made baskets there with me, and they seemed very intrigued by the, the making of the strips taken from a tree that's this round and brought down to as thin as a paper, you know. And there's really uh, not a whole lot to be said about that, except for the splitting of the ash and the pounding of the ash. And I was up to Quebec one time, and I was watching, Quebec. They were where they had this reserve just outside of Quebec, I guess. And I went there, and as I went into this place, it had a lot of the old wigwam types up, and there was a lad sitting on a tree. The tree had to be about that big around, I guess, and he was sitting down there pounding it. He had this thing, and he was sitting there pounding and pounding and pounding. He was pounding when I went in there, and I went across to a lot of places where they had leather work and different kind of uh, native crafts and stuff. So after I was in there for a couple of hours and came back out, and he was still pounding on this tree. So I was, you know, wondering what was going on. So I went over there and I asked him, I said, "What are you doing, buddy?" I said, "You've been sitting here pounding that ash for 2 hours." He says, "Yeah, and I'll probably be still pounding it tonight." So I asked him what he was doing. He says, "This is black ash," he says, "and this is how we do it to get the strips out." He says, "I'll pound this and pound it all the way down to the end, and then I'll cut out the how thick I want the strips, and we'll just take it right from the whole tree. And there's no waste. Uh, where we do it, there's quite a bit of waste, and uh, I thought that was very unique with the way they were pounding the ash and stuff like that. But getting back to your question, there's a lot more interest going on now, and the baskets no longer go for 25 cents, guaranteed. The baskets that were uh, making like the potato baskets, they go for a couple of hundred, and it's hard to get the wood now, and with the price of gas, and you have to go to New Brunswick or northern New Brunswick. It's a long drive, and it's the expense that you would spend on fuel. It's making that basket look like 25 cents again. So the price has to go up a little bit. We try not to put it up so much that people can't afford it, but we will. If we don't, then we won't be able to afford to make any because we have to sell them, right? So that's basically a lot of reason why the basket weaving has feathered out. A lot of that reason is because people can't get the right kind of wood to do it. The maple is no longer gotten on Lennox Island. It's gotten on the other side. Um, the white ash is fading out. It's hard to work with white ash anyways. I always prefer the black because it's easier to pound, and uh it's just an easier wood to work with.
If you were looking out and there was a whole group of youth in front of you that were interested in basket making and learning how to prepare the wood to make baskets, what would you say to them just to inspire them to continue their dream of potentially making a basket one day? What would you say to those youth in front of you?
Well, I would tell them that it's very relaxing to your to your mind, I guess, because when you're weaving, you can't be thinking about anything else but your weaving. Also, if they were to make a little basket on their own and bring it home, they would have something that they're going to want to come back and make more, like, because it's addictive, very addictive. Because once you start making something, and I have a basket right over there that I made probably, well, when Michaela was a baby 13 years ago, and it's still here now, and she uses it as a cradle. First, when I made the basket, it was made for a hamper. That was before she came around. So, anyways, it was probably about that big and long, and we used to use it as a hamper. But when she came along, we needed a bassinet. So what I did was I put over a little top on it, and then it's just like that's what it was made for, and probably it was, like, So things like that are inspiring to create. If you make a basket, it doesn't have to stop there. You can make it into something else. Like, if it was made for one thing, it could always be made for another thing. One thing about the basket was the native people hardly said what the basket was made for. What they would do was go out to a farm and find the woman, which was the boss of the house. Always been like that. And they'll sell her the baskets, because the woman will come out and look at the basket and say, "Oh, that's exactly what I needed for." And that's what the basket became. It's not what you think the basket is good for. It's what the woman of the house thinks the basket is good for.
Oh, I love that so much, and I could honestly listen to you for hours. I love the stories of baskets and where they came from, how you create them, and what will motivate our young people to continue to make baskets. But unfortunately, we are out of time, and I appreciate so much the time you've spent with us and sharing of your stories and your knowledge. I appreciate your time so very much. So thank you to everyone for being a part of our amazing show, Voices of Epekwitk with Eastlink Community TV. Be sure to tune in again for the next episode of our Community Change Makers. We do not like to say goodbye, but I will let my son finish that line.
We like to say Namoltes until we meet again. So Walalio, thank you everyone. Walalin, great Uncle Jim, for all your knowledge, and Namoltes.
Nemoltes.
Gojo wakana, gojo wakana, gojo wakana, gojo 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 gojo wakana, gojo wakana, gojo wakana, gojo